everybody. Welcome to Two Bi Guys, by one bi guy, with another bi guy, another bicon. We've been crossing paths for years. He's been on my radar. He retweets everything we post. It's lovely. I love his support. Today, my guest is the founder of the support site Not Defining. He uses he and they pronouns. Not Defining is a space for anyone struggling with their sexuality, gender, or identity. He's also an ICF certified integrative coach and LGBTQ plus mentor, specializing in supporting those with complex, undefined, fluid, or mixed orientation, gender, or identity. All that space in between, which is exactly what this podcast is about. Welcome to Two Bi Guys, finally, Mark Cusack. Hi.
Hello, Rob. Thank you so much for having me. It's so lovely to be here.
So lovely to finally meet you in this form. I know we've chatted for years on the various social media platforms, but it's lovely to finally get to have a long form conversation with you. So welcome.
Yeah,
Did I pronounce your name correctly, by the way?
you
I
did.
forgot
You
to.
did.
Okay.
Many
Okay, good.
don't, but you did. Thank you so much.
Okay. I would have cut it out and redone it if I didn't. Nobody would ever know. But since I did, that's good to know.
We'll make a thing of
Uh,
it. Yeah.
no relation to John Cusack, the actor?
No, actually, no. But the name is not very common, but it comes originally from France, and then I think we fled to Ireland, and then we fled to Scotland, and then I fled um, to Liverpool a few weeks ago, where I moved. So the
Ooh.
history will continue. We'll see. But I think all the Cusacks are somehow linked from that. But yeah.
Yes, probably. Constantly fleeing. What were you how's
Well,
Liverpool? You just got there. How's your new escape?
it's wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, I just left my office job, and I'm so excited to be able to do my coaching and my content creation and my writing full time. So yes, it's a
Yes.
great new step.
Awesome. I'm excited. This is perfect timing to finally have you on as you're taking that leap into the full-time bi queer not defining business. And it's
Yes, the
awesome.
full time.
You've been doing great work for years, so it makes sense now. I'm glad you finally have that opportunity. So I want to talk about all that stuff in a minute. And this question I kind of have done away with to start a lot of interviews, but since this is kind of your thing, and the brand is not defining, I was curious to ask you, how do you identify on whatever spectrums you would like to identify on or not identify on? Maybe I
Yes,
should ask, how do you not identify?
I love that. Absolutely. I am not defining. Um, yeah, it's such a good question because I basically created this platform not defining because I really have felt for my whole life that this kind of convention of defining our sexuality has always been a bit weird to me. So I use lots of labels. I use the label bi. Obviously, I am a card carrying bisexual. Um, I have it up in my house, and I actually have a little card in my wallet that says, "This person is a certified bisexual." So I salute the bi pride flag, but I also use lots of other identities, pansexual, queer, um, other other things. I also identify as non-binary, and I identify as being on the asexual spectrum as well. So I guess kind of I can't really 100% identify myself, and that's kind of what the concept of not defining is. It's just like, meh, I'm me, I'm Mark, I'm just a person, so come get to know me. But I will use different labels at different times depending on
Yeah.
if I need to.
Cool. I love that answer. It makes sense. It's funny to have the brand not defining, and then for people that aren't listening, audio right behind you is a big poster that says queer, and also a bi flag that says bi, and so
Yeah.
you have some big labels right up there. But when you identify as stuff like bi, pan, queer, it makes sense to me that none of those is your ultimate identity. All of them sort of contribute to the idea of it, and yet none of them is sufficient. That's sort of what I'm hearing from you, and also how I feel that, like, there is no single word or even cluster of words that fully identifies you. And so it's kind of the perfect bisexual thing is that you both don't identify and also have lots of identifiers at the same time.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
I think bisexuality or the bi plus spectrum, it's such a diverse label. Like if you look at all of us, we're so different. We're so different, and actually to have like just like one thing to describe that huge breadth is just like bonkers, really. So yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. But you do identify as like incredibly tall, don't you? I mean, we haven't met in person, but I didn't know this until like recently. Other people post pictures of like standing next to them on your YouTube. You can't tell
Oh
how tall you
yes,
are. Can I ask how tall you are?
yeah,
Is that a appropriate
yeah.
question?
It is an appropriate question, absolutely. And of course, like sexuality, height is a spectrum, but I am on the upper end of that spectrum. It's so funny. I think that was when I was at Bi Pride UK
Uh
um,
huh.
this summer, which was really cool. And they had that kind of like a backdrop where it
Yeah.
was like all the bi colors. It was like the Met Gala of bi-ness. It was so cool.
Uh huh.
And so we all were like taking our glamorous Bi Pride shots. And yeah, dear friend of mine posted one, and they're quite tall. Like they are quite a
Yeah.
tall person. Um,
Yeah.
but next to me, they were just like, "Oh my gosh, I am 6'9", which in metric is just over 2 meters, so kind of 2 meters and 4 centimeters, I think. Um, but my
That's
gran
wild.
holds the official record. She has on her little doorway just outside of Glasgow. She has all of my measurements literally since I was a baby, and so she
Wow.
kind of does it with a pencil. So if you want
Yeah.
the official one, then she's the one that holds that.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I saw that photo, and I think the person who posted that is like over 6 feet, and I'm 6'2". There are very few people I encounter in the world that I have to look up to, and the comparison between you two was just like, I mean, that person looked like very small, but actually, it's you. Were you taller than the backdrop? Did you even fit in the backdrop?
I
They,
can't quite remember, but I think yeah, it was a good backdrop. And uh, as somebody who I look up to very much, I can say I look up to you, whether physically or not. We'll have to meet in person. That's the only thing, so we can check.
Yes. Yes, we will. This season, like other seasons in the past, is heavily featuring some UK and European guests. So we have to have like a two bi guys guest reunion when I next time I come over there at some point.
You'd be very
Uh,
welcome.
I love it over there. It's so bi. Why is it so bi in the UK? Or what do you think?
It's so
Is it
by
the water? Something in the water or the corn or something? Well, I don't
I
know what
think
you grow. Corn, not corn. That's what we grow. What do you grow there?
what do we grow? Like potatoes,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
The potatoes
Carrots.
making everyone buy or something?
No, I think to be honest, in the UK, we've been through quite an evolution because obviously, like when I grew up, it was like bisexuality was like nowhere to be found. It was like it wasn't even a thing. But I think in the past, maybe like 5 to 10 years, we've had so much progress and so many people speaking out and talking about different identities and stuff like that. That it's really becoming more and more. And we have, I guess, two kind of main conventions. One is BICON UK, which has been going on for decades. It's actually like the community
Wow.
there has been going since oh my gosh, so long. So that's the real establishment. And then we've got Bi Pride UK, which is a bit younger, um, but the community is growing, and I want to wildly encourage that wherever I can.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, when I started this, and when I assume I forget, when did you exactly start your content creation? A few years ago?
Gosh, yeah, it was like 2020, 2021.
Cool. Okay. So I want to ask you about that. But like even 5 years ago, there wasn't as much. And just in the last 5 years, there's so many books coming out. Vanit's book, Lowe's book, Lewis Oakley's book is coming out. All these are all UK people. There's lots more podcasts coming out now. There's more creators, and I never even got into this YouTube space. So for those who don't know, which I can't imagine is many, if you listen to this podcast, you must be aware of not defining, but maybe not, maybe you know not defining and you're coming to the podcast. But the not defining is all over YouTube. That's sort of like your main channel, and then it branches out into other social media. But you do a ton of YouTube videos, explainers. They're awesome. I mean, any topic you're curious about or struggling with bisexuality, if you just go look at the Not Defining YouTube page, there's like any question you want answered, Mark has answered. So tell us, like, how and why did you start doing this, and how has it evolved?
Well, thank you so much for your kind words about my channel and my work. You were actually one of the very first uh, things that I kind of connected with and engaged with when I was first working out my bisexuality. So to be here and speaking with you and to hear you say such nice things about my work is really, really something. So
Oh,
thank you
I'm
to you.
glad. You're welcome. You're
I
welcome.
remember listening to two bi guys, you know, just not even knowing if I was bi and being like, oh gosh, yeah. So yeah, it's crazy how these things happen. But
Cool.
I was never
Yeah.
on social media. I was never doing any of that stuff. I was one of those people who's just like, no, no, don't want to be on Instagram, don't want to do any of that. Um, but I actually did a talk at my work. They have like a diversity and inclusion like committee thing. And I was trying to work myself out. And actually my work was a bit of a safe kind of space and stuff. They were doing quite a lot. Um, and I actually went to them and I was like, maybe they will know some kind of bisexual people. Because I was thinking maybe I'm bisexual. And they actually said, no, we don't have any bi people. We don't know of any bi people. But if you're bi, why don't you come and be the bi rep and like do a talk and write a blog? And I was like, whoa. Hold on. Like, I don't even know who I am, what I am. Like, I thought there was this whole world of bisexual people, like, who knew who they were and who knew what it
Mm,
was all about and who were talking about it and could help me. Apparently, there wasn't.
mm,
So, and I'm sure that you doing this work will kind of appreciate that. It's like there's very few people who are actually out there and able to kind of talk about it. And
yeah.
so I was like, oh gosh, well, you know, I can't do this. I don't know the first thing about bisexuality. But I spoke to a person who was kind of in a partner organization who they kind of managed to link me up. And they said, look, there ain't no one out there who knows the right answer of what is bisexuality and everything. Like, your experience, you are it. Like, you
Mm,
are it.
mm,
Your experience, no matter if it like makes sense or if it's the right thing or if it's like the way that other people experience, like, you are bi. Like, that's what it
mm,
is. That's what bisexuality is, what you've been through. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so I thought, okay, screw this. I'm just going to do this talk and I'm going to just speak totally and utterly from my heart. I'm going to say all those things that I was confused about, all those things that don't make sense, all those things that I've struggled with in my life and that I thought kind of I'm the only one. I'm
mm.
just going to do it. Whatever. We'll see. And I did this talk at my work and so many people came to me and said, oh my gosh, like, that's me. Like, oh my gosh, I was so affected by what you said. Like, people were actually emotional, people were actually crying. Like, it was so, so, so powerful. And it was at that moment that I was like, okay, wow, I need to, I need to do this. I need to share this because this is something really impactful. And so I decided to post something on Instagram. And again, I was just like, I'm just going to do this. I'm sure no one's going to like pick it up. But of course, I posted something about myself, again, just authentically me. And that was where Not Defining came from, because it wasn't even about bisexuality or anything. It was just about I'm this thing that I don't, see anyone else being like. And, doesn't seem to fit into the mold. And I've struggled with it a lot, but here I am. So many people came back. And very, very quickly, people started to, like and comment and share, and it grew and it grew and it grew. And then people started coming to my DMs and asking me questions like, I'm going through this. Can you help me? Like, asking me all these things. And so I would kind of respond. And very, very quickly, I think a lot of people in the queer community will appreciate that kind of the minute you become out and visible and vocal, people will come to you for help.
Yeah.
So I kind of just started helping all these people, and I had a professional background that was kind of helped me to do that a bit, and it just grew from there. And so I branched out from Instagram to, I think, Twitter. I left that because, sorry, Elon,
Me too.
not like sorry, but I'm now on Threads, which is a bit nicer, and I started my YouTube channel, and what else we did. TikTok as well, because my friends
Uh-huh.
convinced me. They were like, "You got to be speaking to the kids." So I was pressured
Yeah.
to go on
Yeah.
TikTok, but now I love it, and it just grew and grew and grew. And then at a certain point, I realized, okay, I can't do all of this anymore. And so that was where I started to look into training as a professional coach. So I did my coaching training. Um, I trained in mentorship. I did all kinds of things so that I could really provide like proper support to people. And so now
Yeah. Cool.
it's a huge platform of, I think 35,000 people. And as I said, I've just recently left my office job, and I'm now doing it full time. So it's been
Cool.
amazing, absolutely
Awesome.
crazy ride. But yeah.
I love it. I love it. I want to ask more about the coaching in a few minutes, but I love that evolution. I mean, and it's so similar to what happened with me. It's sort of parallel because I went sort of the podcast route and the social media that comes with it. And I forgot that you started on Instagram and then kind of became this very popular YouTube channel, which I don't want to say which any of those is sort of primary, but does that seems like where all the full videos are sort of the explainers. Your page is just very well done. I've often thought like, should I do YouTube versions of Two By Guys explaining? And then I look and it's like any topic I think of, you've already covered. I should have done it 5 years ago, but you filled that space, which is great. But that was the reason we started the podcast. Is the same as what you're saying. Is like I was looking for a bi podcast, and there wasn't one that spoke to me at the time. So we were like, well, we don't really know everything, but also does anyone? Nothing is out. There's nothing out there. And like
Yeah.
Alex and I were going to this discussion group talking about it, and people were liked what we were saying, and we wanted to share what other people were saying, and so we knew enough to talk about ourselves, and that was what we did, and it just kind of evolved from there. I wonder if it's ever going to like at some point some bi creators have to be like not going that route. We're like, oh, it didn't exist, so I created it. Hopefully, at some point, it exists and there's new
Yeah.
twists to it. But it does seem like that's the story of many of us queer creators at the moment, is like creating what we were looking for ourselves.
Absolutely. And that is the filter that I put basically everything that I create through. It is, what would the younger version of me want and need to hear?
Yeah.
I struggled so much. I mean, so much with my sexuality growing up. And there were times where I just thought, I cannot, I cannot do this. I cannot understand this. I just don't get it. And I don't get how
Yeah.
I'm going to be able to live in this world that just seems to not understand me. Um,
Yeah.
and so everything I do is just a love letter to that that younger guy. And what that does is it also kind of makes sure that I know it's going to be relevant, because I know there's so many people like me out there who really struggle,
Right.
and there really, really are. So
Right. What I love about your page, all your content, especially on social media, that I think is what caused it to grow and get all this feedback, is that you're just so authentically you. And you're not like, it didn't start as you explaining everything. It just started as you sharing yourself and what you were going through. And it's very vulnerable. And you talk about mental health struggles and like other things that are difficult. And like what I remember seeing when it first came out, and also recently, is like in your when you post stuff, it's just so personal, and it's really just what you're thinking. It's not attempting to answer everything for everyone. It's authentically you, and that's like where you start. And that's sort of how I started, is just being as earnest as possible. Now I'm taking a turn into comedy and doing the opposite. I start with the earnestness and then something else, but because I'm getting tired of earnestness, it's getting old after 5 years. But I think that's what allowed people to really connect with us and with you, is you're really being authentic. How do you feel about that?
it's very, very special to hear somebody like you know, say that to me. And also, can I just say that your comedy is absolutely amazing. Like, to have to have people laugh and make jokes and bring humor and joy to our experiences, those things that like have been in the shadow and been in the darkness, that we struggle with a lot of the time, like to bring that into like humor is just amazing. And I bow to anyone who can do stand-up comedy. I think that's the hardest. Hairdressers and comedians, I think, are the two hardest job in the world, the two scariest jobs with the most pressure in the world. So I respect them. It's
Why is
so
hairdresser
simple.
so scared? Why are you
Because what if you
have this
get
so
it
scary?
wrong? What if you get it wrong? How do they do it as well? How do you do that? How do you do it? And then when someone like tries to, I'm always like, I'm one of those people who they say, okay, so what can we do for you today? And I'm just like, and how do they make it
Me
good?
too. Yeah. I'm always like, I don't know, make it like usually I just like go like this. And I'm
Yeah,
like not too short, but kind of short. Like I just say things that mean nothing
right,
to the
right.
hairdresser.
We're such awkward, like anxious bi people, but like I just have so much respect for hairdressers. My auntie is a hairdresser; she's amazing, and I just think I could never do that. And that's what I think
Wow.
about stand up. So, you know,
Wow.
huge, huge, huge respect.
Well, thank you. But and I maybe you can't be a hairdresser. I don't know. That's a specific thing. But I do think someday you could do stand up, because the prerequisite for that is like you have to be vulnerable and authentic and be yourself in front of people, and you very much
Ooh.
know how to do that. And the writing the joke on top of that is, there is an X factor. Like you have to be creative in a certain way, but it is something you can learn and practice and do over and over and get better at. But the authenticity is harder to learn. And I think you've now had, like, I think the reason I'm able to do the stand up is because I did this podcast for 5 years. If I had tried to do it before coming out as bi, I don't think I could have done it because I wasn't really fully prepared to be myself on stage.
Mm,
Um, but it has been so fun. It's like it really does take the piss out of stuff, to use a British phrase. Like, my favorite joke that I tell is the one I start with every time because it's really fast. And I just say, "Hi, I'm Rob. I'm bisexual, or as my wife calls it, gay." And it's my favorite joke
so
because
good.
it's the thing that I was so scared of for so long, is being seen as gay. And I didn't come out for so long because that's what I thought people would think, and that's what I was secretly afraid of, that I'm doing these gymnastics. And with that one very short sentence, I just like am able to acknowledge that that was the big fear, that that's the big stereotype, and tell people that I'm not afraid of that anymore. Like, just by telling that joke, it shows that like I don't care anymore, and I don't like,
Mm.
even if my wife sometimes thinks I'm gay, like, whatever, that's cool, fine. And I can say that on a podcast 100 times, but to make the joke out of it and show that it doesn't bother me is so empowering.
Oh
Yeah,
my gosh. And what you do in showing that authenticity in such a powerful way, in such a humorous way, is that you help other people to feel it as well. So I watch that and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so funny, because of course we share those things. And it's so cool what you say about authenticity. This is something that I feel that as bi people, I think as bi men, um, as people who haven't had a kind of sexuality or identity that fits into society's boxes, I remember for so long just repressing everything, like not just who I was attracted to, but the way that I walked, the way that I talked, the things that I said. I remember lying about the music that I liked and the movies that I
yeah,
liked and the clothes I want to wear, and just everything was so repressed and policed.
yeah,
And so that authenticity is is life-saving. It's essential. Like it's everything. And so I love being able to do what I do, because it's like this space where I can just be authentic.
yeah,
And as I've been on social media, a lot of people say, "Oh, social media is not good for you," and everything. For me, it's been so powerful because it's a space I can go and practice. I can
yeah,
practice being authentic, and then just like run away and hide and look to see who says something about it. And every time I do, I go, "Oh, well,
yeah.
I did that." Until now, where I just don't care about anything but like you. It's just like,
Right, right. It's
it's great.
it's a bit easier in a way to put stuff on the internet than to get up in front of like 1,000 people and talk, because like you don't see the audience right there. So
Yeah,
it's just like, oh, I'm sitting in front of my computer. Let me put
yeah,
this out and see what happens. And it feels less scary. But then your stuff is going to tens of thousands of people. Like you're talking to an arena full of people. But then it's like, yeah, the things we're scared of most of the time are, we're making up these stories in our head. And so many people think the same way and are going through the same things and also are scared to talk about it. And so then, of course, when you actually share that and there aren't a lot of people doing that, then you're going to get these positive responses. It's like I have another
absolutely.
joke about how most bi men are not out. So if you do come out, a lot of other people will start coming out to you, and only
It's so
you.
true.
I feel like
So
a
true.
priest or something. I'm a bi priest. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes. That is exactly what happened. When I started talking online, let me tell you, you probably had this experience as well. The people that come out of the woodwork, Rob, the people who come out,
yeah,
and I'm talking people who you did not expect.
yeah,
And it's like you are
yeah,
this holder of the secrets. And people would message me and be like, hey, how are you doing? I'm like, oh, I haven't heard from you for a while. Someone who I'd known in my, you know,
Yeah.
personal life. And it's like, yeah, so I've just been seeing, and yeah, it's just, wanted to share this. And it's so wonderful because you put yourself out there and then people feel safe with you. Although sometimes, yeah, it can be a little bit like,
Too
yes,
safe.
come to confession, like come and,
Yes.
but
Yes.
it's
Which
wonderful.
leads to the coaching, which we'll get to in one second. But yeah, that actually just happened the other day. I went to an open mic. I did my very bi poly set.
So good.
I walked out with this guy. We walked to our cars together, and he's a straight guy, and he was telling me, I think everything's a spectrum and stuff. And I was like, kind of seeing where it was going. And I was kind of like, yeah, there's a lot of guys who identify as straight, but when you ask them where they are on the Kinsey scale, they're not a zero. They'll say they're a one or a two. Actually, like 20% of people are in that one or two space, but only a few, 3, 4, 5% identify as bi. So, and I'm just like giving him permission to say, and then he was like, yeah, I think I'm like a Kinsey one. I think, and like, I don't know this guy. Like, he's doing a very straight set at the open mic. I don't know him, and he's coming out to me on the way to my car. I mean, not
Isn't
really coming out because he's straight, but he's sharing something that he probably doesn't share with other people.
Yeah,
Um,
and how beautiful is that? And how sad is that we have to be so afraid of these things? But it's just so wonderful that he was able to share
yeah,
that with you. And
yeah.
I love the Kinsey ones, the Kinsey one guys. Just call me, let's be friends.
I
It's
know
wonderful.
that, and that's the fastest growing group in the world is Kinsey ones because you can still be straight and be a Kinsey one. It's
You
just like
can
a
still
little,
be,
it's just like a
yeah, it's
little,
just a little
yeah.
something.
Come on,
Hashtag Kinsey one.
come on. Okay, title of episode: Kinsey ones. No. Uh, and
Uh,
by the way, you mentioned something earlier, just last point, and then we'll move on. The policing of how we were before we came out and this repression, like, oh my God, in high school, I love Broadway. I grew up going to see Broadway. I know that this is a stereotype of queerness, but for me it was accurate where it was like I was in love with show tunes. I would drive around in my car with the CDs singing them, but if anyone else got in the car, that CD came out and something else was put in that was more quote normal and appropriate, and that was not something I shared with other people because even then I knew that seemed gay, even though I had no clue yet that I was like attracted to men. I was just like, let me not share that part of myself with anyone. And it was something I loved. Like, I would be belting these songs in the car.
yeah.
Chicago. My favorite was Chicago.
Oh my
I'd be,
gosh.
and actually, it's funny. My favorite musical is Chicago, and I would be singing Mr. Cellophane, this song about being invisible and nobody gets you. I would be like
I mean,
belting it in my car. How ironic is that?
and you didn't know that you were queer.
No, I
Yeah.
mean, not officially.
Do you know? And do you know what the crazy thing about that is? That let's say that you and I were in each other's life, or we were friends or colleagues or whatever it might be. Like, I would love to be in that car rocking out to Chicago with you. Like, we would be singing along, we would be doing the dance moves, like we would be having the most joy, like the most joy. And yet we would both have put on different music because we expected that from other people. I think that's
Right.
something that, especially as men, I think we assume that people are not going to be okay with those things, and
Mm.
actually that's such a shame. And that song, Mr. Cellophane, weirdly, I actually sang that at school. Isn't that crazy that you just mentioned that?
Oh,
I sang
interesting.
that at
Yeah.
school. And again, I didn't know what was going on with me, but I really connected with the song as well.
Huh.
It's a really sad song, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it is. I mean, that whole show is very dark, but also amazing and
Awesome
uplifting.
folks.
But yeah. But I remember seeing Joel Grey perform that when I was like 14 years old on Broadway, and
Amazing.
that song. It is so funny how we all have these parallel experiences, but until recently didn't realize, and
Yeah.
that's the unfortunate bi experience for many, but hopefully changing.
Yes.
So, okay, let's talk about coaching a little. We may run long. Oh my God, we have so much to talk about. It's so nice to finally meet you. Uh, so I realized like a year or two ago that coaching existed and was a thing that you could do, and that like what I had been doing with this podcast and content creation is kind of like what a lot of coaches do to build up their business and like get an audience that's interested in this niche. So like I didn't even realize that I had been laying the groundwork for my coaching practice. But then I finally did. I went to IPEC, which is a coach training program. I did an 8 month training program. And now since about February, I've been coaching mostly by men in relationships, but not all of them, navigating relationship stuff. And it's been awesome. So tell me about your journey with that. Like, I'm curious what your training was like and what, how the coaching business is. I know you just have started very recently, but how's it going so far?
Yeah. Thank you for asking. It's it's like I kind of said, I came to it organically because when I started posting, people would just come to me. So it really
Yeah.
started with me um, kind of just texting people in my DMs. That's really, I guess, where I kind of learned so much about people's issues, about what they struggle with, about as well how to kind of support people and what they need and that kind of thing. I did that just free of charge, completely
Right.
just out of my heart. I just did it because I wanted to. It was so authentic to me, and I had that ability to connect. And as I did that, people started saying things to me like I've never spoken to anyone who gets it the way that you do. I've never been able to express the things that I feel I can express to you because of the stuff that I put online. People know that I'm safe. They know that I get it. I think that's such a big thing
Yeah.
for people, bi people, ace people, non-binary people, people in less understood and represented identities. They need to understand that the person gets them. And so I was like, well, this is really a thing. And again, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot out there in terms of support for people. I certainly struggled when I was going through everything with myself in terms of trying to find a therapist or a counselor or someone who really got it. Um, and so it got to the point where I couldn't cope with the amount of people coming to me for support. So I started actually a Patreon account where people could pay like a couple of pounds a month or something, just a kind of token amount, just so I could whittle out the kind of people who are really serious and who really needed
Yeah.
my support. And that way we could basically text or write through written messages and they could ask me questions and so on. And so I started doing that formally. And then throughout this whole experience, people were asking me, please can I have a call with you, Mark? Please can I have a call? Like, I'd love
Mm.
to chat with you. I'd really love to tell you my story. And I was like, look, I cannot do that. I cannot do that. I work full time. There's no way
Yeah.
I can do that.
Yeah.
There was so much need. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so, yeah, that's when I thought, okay, I'm going to, I'm going to start offering this on a formal basis. Um,
Yeah. Before you get into that, that's like the same thing. Like as soon as season 1 aired, we would start getting these DMs, especially when we did that episode about bi men married to women, I realized that was a big part of our audience, and they were
Yeah.
struggling and wanted to talk and didn't know anyone. And I would get all these messages like that with people, long paragraphs sharing their story.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to respond. I responded. I mean, maybe I miss a few here and there, but I always respond to everyone that writes in. And
Mm.
after a while, I was kind of like, this is a lot of response. Like, this is actually becoming as much time and energy as the podcast itself.
Exactly.
And I like doing it. I want to respond to everyone, but maybe I should actually learn how to help people and then also get paid for it, because because it is taking my time and energy. Okay, go on.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so lovely that you responded, and that's exactly what happened with me. I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to be able to devote my time and energy to this because it's so worthy and wonderful.
Yeah,
But I wanted to make sure that I kind of did it right and had the qualifications. Um, I had already in my professional life had a slightly related profession. I was a trained trauma first responder and sexual assault first responder and uh, crisis negotiator, things. So I'd
cool.
always been a bit like into talking with people and that kind of thing. But I was lucky enough to have some amazing people around me who are therapists and coaches and counselors and people in those professions. And I sought their advice and I said, look, this is the situation. I really want to do this. And so they recommended that I take a coaching certification. So I did that, very similar to yourself. And I went with the ICF, the International Coaching Federation. They're the kind of the gold standard for coaching. They're the kind of most, I think, globally the largest federation. So that I
Yeah,
knew that I had the hard skills. And then I took that and I applied everything that I had learned from, what I'd already been doing. And I provided this support. And the moment that I started offering calls, people just started taking it up. So
cool,
I
cool.
love my coaches. They're so amazing, and it's
Yeah,
such a privilege to be able to be trusted by people who really often feel like there's no one else that they can speak to.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
it's a huge honor, really.
Cool. I love it. Yeah, I'm a ICF member. That's definitely the biggest one, and I'm working on that to get enough hours to be officially to get their official credential or something, which I'm
Hmm.
almost there. But my training was I. So your training was through ICF.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting. I didn't even know they offer it. That's cool. So let me ask you this very basic question that I have an answer to, but I'm because not everyone listening might know what coaching is, or like how is it different from therapy, or like what exactly do you do. What is coaching to you?
Yeah. Um, so coaching can look quite a lot like therapy. Um, Therapy, counseling, coaching all have crossovers. And you'll find a lot of therapists will employ coaching techniques and coaches will employ counseling techniques and whatever. So they're very, very connected. But normally coaching is a little bit more condensed. So you won't necessarily go into a lot of long detail about kind of your life, and you won't necessarily kind of have like a regular meeting kind of once a week for a long term, although some people do come to me long term. But it's more condensed, and the main feature of it is that you're always looking towards where you can get to. So it's always focused on getting you to where you need to be. There's always a point
Yeah,
to it. There's always an aim to it. therapy, you're kind of treating mental health conditions. You know, if you have
Yeah.
depression, anxiety, you go to the therapist. They're trained in that. They can help you to treat. That's not a coach's job. A coach's job is to take you where you're at and to help you work out where you are, what's going on for you, and then to help you to get to where you need to be. Now, that might be something really practical. So I have people who say, oh, I really want to come out to my partner, or I really want to um, go to a queer space or visit Pride, and
Yeah.
I don't have the confidence to do that. Can you help me? And so we're like, okay, there's a practical thing, steps to take, and building confidence. Great. But it could also be something, you know, in your aims that is really, really personal or psychological or emotional. So you have a lot of people with deep trauma and, you know, obsessive anxiety or really, really dark emotional thoughts. So that can also be held in coaching as well, but it's just using that style of making it a little bit more um, aims focused and really kind of getting
Right.
you
Goal
to where
oriented.
you
Yeah.
need to be. Um,
Yeah. Right.
that's basically it.
Yeah, I totally agree with all that. It sounds like, the ICF sort of has similar ways of teaching this to people. Yeah, like it's goal oriented. I often or almost always try to start a session with asking my clients like, what's your goal for today? What's your goal for this session? Or when we do an intro call, like, what's your goal if we work together? Where would you like to be in 2 or 3 months?
Yeah.
When many people have a clear goal, they're navigating a relationship challenge, or they want to come out, or they want to find ways to build community, and something is holding them back internally or
Hmm.
externally. Yeah, so it's that goal oriented, and sometimes people don't know exactly what their goal is. Like
Yeah.
they're struggling with something, but they don't really know what it would look like to
Yeah.
move past that. And that's what we can talk through and visualize where you want to be before you figure out how to get there. Like there's something blocking you. Let's talk about it. And really, like, I mean, everything you said is accurate. To just paint another picture, it's basically what I do is ask people questions and have a chat and ask open-ended, empowering questions that are designed to create awareness. Because my thinking and, sort of the coach philosophy we were taught is like, the client has all the answers. This isn't about me giving you advice, because what I went through or what Mark went through is not, is unique to us and is not the same. And I can share my experience, but then I'm always going to check in with the client. Like, how does that resonate with you? What do you think? How do you think about this? Like, the goal is really creating awareness, because often when you want to get somewhere, but you're not there, there's something holding you back. And if you knew what it was, you wouldn't be struggling so much. Like it's
Yeah.
just figuring out what that thing is that's holding you back is where coaching can be really helpful and powerful. Because I assume you like we're going to ask you questions that maybe you've been avoiding, or maybe you haven't fully thought through because you're not letting your mind go there, or you haven't been in a safe space with someone who gets it, right? And so that's the power of especially like being with a coach who gets fluidity, sexuality, gender identity. Is It's a very safe space to explore, and a lot of people don't have that in their daily lives. So that's, I'm sure they can open up to you, and I found they open up to me in ways that
Mm.
they might not with other people.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly it. The answers are all inside you. And I always say to people that I work with, you know, I'm not going to be giving you advice. If you want to ask me questions, I'd be very happy to answer. And I always answer as openly and as frankly as I can. Because I think, with my channel and everything, sometimes people want to come and ask me things, and that's absolutely a case we can do that. But normally it will be more kind of exploring with them where they are. And I
Yeah.
think another really important thing is that um, a lot of the time and especially with the LGBT community and people who suffer from repression that kind of thing. I think a lot of the time there's subconscious things going on that
Right.
we really can't consciously get to ourselves. And so you might need the help of somebody who just understands how to get those things from you and to help you explore them in a certain way, because otherwise these things just stay repressed, and we can't really get to them by ourselves. So we do a lot of that.
Yeah, right. And because, maybe our experience isn't exactly the same as the clients, but like we've been through stuff where we've repressed stuff and we've felt ashamed, or we've had to share things we were scared of. And so sometimes when you've been through it, you know what questions to ask that the client may not have thought about yet. And I don't even realize, like, sometimes I just ask what I'm curious about. I mean, not sometimes, all the time. I just follow my curiosity. And that often leads a client to somewhere they haven't thought about yet. And that helps them prepare for what's coming. Yeah. Cool. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to this episode featuring Mark Cusack of Not Defining. Stay tuned next week for the conclusion of my chat with him. We did another 45-50 minutes. You won't want to miss it. In the meantime, happy October. Just a quick shout out. This past weekend, I was at the Bisexual Research Conference. It was all online, 2-day event. I spoke on a panel. Last year, I presented the findings of my book. It was just an awesome event. So many people presented really interesting research about bisexuality. And it highlighted the need for even more, because there's a lot of statistics that are just not available. If you don't know about the Bisexual Research Group, you should follow them on social media. Go look up their website. I'll put it in the show notes. They're a great group. If you missed it this year, check it out next year. I also just spoke this weekend at a group called Husbands Out to Wives. The acronym is HOW. Just a quick plug for them. They're a great group. If you're looking for support, if you're a married bi guy or married gay man, check out HOW. It's an awesome group. I still have a few slots available for individual coaching, and I am going to resume group coaching soon. Not this week, but soon. Check my social media for dates for group coaching. And one more thing for today, since we have a little bit of time left, and since it came up in my conversation with Mark, I'm going to post another one of my stand-up sets here for you to enjoy. Maybe you've already seen it on Instagram or YouTube. It's all there on the internet. It's also on my website. But just in case you don't want to go find it and you're already listening to this, here it is. This is my second ever show that I did. I decided to do an entire set entirely about male masturbation parties. If you've listened to this podcast before, you have heard me talk about that probably a few times. I really could only have done this stand-up set because I had already talked about it so much on the podcast and was not ashamed and not embarrassed to go even deeper. So here you go. Check it out. It's about 6 minutes. All my sets are on YouTube and on my website, robertbrookscohen.com. Enjoy. See you next week. And thanks for listening to Two Bi Guys.
Well, give it up for Rob Cohen.
Hi, everybody. Hi, I'm Rob, and I am bisexual. Or as my wife calls it, gay. I thought that I was straight for a while, and I didn't start exploring with men until my late 20s. And it's really scary when you're just starting to explore because you can out yourself unexpectedly. Like this one time I went to a male masturbation party and I spotted a coworker there and I was terrified. I barely even looked at him while we were jerking each other off. Anyone here ever been to a male masturbation party? I thought I recognized someone in the back. How about summer camp? Similar? Well, brace yourselves, because I'm going to talk about this. For those who don't know, male masturbation parties are actually really similar to female masturbation parties, except that they actually exist outside of porn. And And they typically cost about $25, which is kind of a lot considering you still have to do most of the work yourself. I normally go to these parties about once a month, which is how often my wife leaves town. And you can find them in most major cities across the country. Like here in LA, it's called LAX Jacks. And it's true. And in New York, it's called New York Jacks. And in Jacksonville, Florida, it's called Burn in Hell Faggots. Those ones are hot. By the way, my wife and I are non-monogamous. She knows that I go to these parties. She actually likes that I go to these parties. She says it's one less thing she has to do for me. And when I get home, I actually do just want to cuddle. So to set the scene a little, this is my whole set. You walk in, you pay your $25. It's one big room. There's anywhere from 20 to 100 naked guys. There's porn projected on the walls. There's lube in little Dixie cups all over. It's very cute. And there's no penetration allowed, at least according to the guy I tried to fuck. There's only touching allowed. It's just touching, and there's a lot of touching. And sometimes, though, if it gets too crowded, you can't always tell whose hand is touching you. I know. It's incredible. And it's kind of a quiet space. There isn't a ton of talking. I think I know why that is. I think it's because there's a lot of guys there who can't yet talk about what they're doing. Maybe they're just exploring this fantasy, or they're not out yet. That was definitely me at the beginning. Like, I was fine rubbing dicks together with other guys, but if somebody came up to me and was like, hey, I was like, back off, I'm straight. And because there isn't much talking, you have to learn to communicate consent non-verbally. So like this means, let's touch, I'm down. And like this means no thank you. And this means thank you for coming in my face. That means who's next? There is a lot of cum flying around at these parties, and people often ask me who cleans up after you. But people at the parties are surprisingly respectful. There's always someone walking around who's more than willing to lick it up. Don't kink shame them. Really, though, you shouldn't waste the cum on the floor. You should cum on me. I enjoy it. Well, I actually get annoyed if I hook up with a guy and he doesn't cum on my face. I'm like, are we even friends? Hooking up with me and not coming on me. It's kind of like when you go out to dinner with someone and they don't offer to Venmo you for half. It's like, were you raised in a barn? It's weird, though, meeting people for the first time naked and then seeing them in their clothes later. Like, sometimes I'll walk out with someone and see them in their clothes, and I'm like, clothes are good for you. I actually think most people look sexier in their clothes, which makes me wonder why I go to so many naked parties. I think my ultimate fantasy would be a clothed masturbation party, but I just can't figure out how to get tickets to the Oscars. I'll leave you with this. That story about my coworker is true, and in hindsight, I'm glad it happened, because I went up to him the next day and I said, that was you, right? Just to check. And he said, yeah, because, we didn't talk. And he said, you were very popular. And I was like, I know. And then I said, just so you know, I'm not out. Nobody at work knows that I'm bi, and so if you could, before I even finished, he said, don't worry, I totally get it. I would never tell anyone, that's yours to tell. And we developed this really nice relationship. We had this connection after that. We didn't really have much of a relationship before, and he was really supportive of me after that, which just goes to show that sometimes the nicest friendships happen when you don't see them coming. or when you do. Thank you guys, I'm Rob Cohen. Give it up for Torrance.
Give it up for Rob Cohen.
Two Bi Guys by One Bi Guy is produced and edited by me, Robert Brooks Cohen, and it was created by me and Alex Boyd. Our new logo art is by Caitlin Weinman. Our music is by Ross Mincer. To help support this podcast, visit patreon.com/Robert Brooks Cohen. You get early access, bonus content, and full video episodes. Visit robertbrookscohen.com to learn more about my coaching, my book, and my stand-up comedy. And thanks for listening to Two Bi Guys by One Bi Guy.